From Addis Ababa with love. But why are Kenyans celebrating when one of their own has lost an election? There is a story there. But the biggest story by far is a simple question. What next for Raila Odinga after losing the election for AU chair? What next for him? Karibu sana to my show today, where I will attempt to break it all down for you so that we understand what is going on and we get an idea of what is to come. Sit back, look for that popcorn and enjoy. Welcome back. Raila Odinga and President Ruto in Addis Ababa, the night before the election, they did not sleep. And so, it is clear that the Kenyan delegation in Addis Ababa, by the way, which was very large, but they told us they never spent taxpayers' money. But most Kenyans believe you in stories za jaba. The Kenyan delegation was very desperate that Raila must win this particular election. Why? Why was there so much desperation in the Kenyan camp? Why was President Ruto so desperate for Raila to win? Indeed, the president was so crestfallen that immediately after the election, many people gave their comment to the international press. Many people spoke, but Ruto did not speak. Of course, he later released a statement. But on the ground, he did not speak. Does that tell us something? I think it does. To get an idea as to why it was so important for Raila Odinga to win this election, maybe we need to start with the question, where did this idea come from in the first place? Well, it is widely accepted in Kenya today that this idea did not come from within the borders of Kenya. It came from foreigners, some powerful foreigners operating in Kenya. And of course the objective was to get Raila out of the way as a political force in Kenya. Of course, a lot has happened politically since those early days when this idea was hatched, over 9 months ago. However, I believe the objectives remain the same: to get Raila out of the way. And this would explain why so many Kenyans were hoping and praying for Raila to fail. But there's something else which has come up. You see, there is a different person in the White House as we speak that has disrupted the power structure, the operations of these powerful Westerners in the country called Kenya. And therefore, every little foothold they can get here and there has now become more critical than ever. And therefore it was very important for Ruto and these sponsors of Raila to have a foothold in the African Union. In other words, with an office in Addis Ababa, it would have been possible for them to go into many African countries, and have the excuse of going to those countries while fulfilling their own agenda. Folks, I have reason to believe, that this was a major contributing factor to the sheer desperation we saw in Addis. But there are also some political lessons to be learned from what happened in these elections. Actually, it was something super fascinating. Now, most of us remember that there was a last-minute candidate, somebody who came into the race very late. That is the man from Madagascar, Richard, I don't know if I can pronounce his second name, Richard Randriamadrato from Madagascar. And he had very strong backing from the South African development community. Indeed, his entry into the race elicited a reaction from the Kenyan Foreign Affairs Office. Surely, that tells us something. And of course, their complaint was that technically Madagascar was not within East Africa. You see, this AU office that Raila was seeking rotates, and this was the turn of East Africa. And so the complaint was that this was unfair because this was the turn for East Africa. And actually, technically, Madagascar is in the southern part of the continent. They have landmass in both areas, and therefore they are able to contest the election even when it is the turn of the southern tip of the continent. And guess what? Releasing this statement was a political mistake, because it was released when the elections were just around the corner and they're looking for votes. And now you start criticizing some of the voters. Does that make sense to you? Anyway, my point was that already was a red light flashing, telling you there was something wrong here. And of course, as the election started in Addis, it became very clear what game was being played here. You see, to be able to win, you need at least 2/3 of the members to vote for you. The magic number is 33. And so logically, when you introduce a third strong candidate, you reduce the chances of anybody getting that magic figure of 33. And this worked like a charm. Because in the early rounds of this election, Raila Odinga won, but he did not attain that magic number of 33. And the result ultimately is that this election got into a rut. Both candidates, Raila and Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, the eventual winner from the country called Djibouti, were stuck with neither candidate able to attain the magic 33 number. Bottom line, Raila was effectively blocked from winning this election. And in the end, Raila Odinga, on realizing that he can't win this one, had to do the honorable thing, which was to withdraw and thus allow Mahmoud Ali Yusuf to get that magic number of at least 33 countries voting for him. End of story. I'm sure most of us are aware that this tactic of sponsoring another candidate in order to spoil an election in your favor, or at least enhance your chances of winning, is a very common strategy. For example, in the 2022 presidential elections, a man called Wanja Koya, the weed professor, was an Azimio candidate. And of course the idea was to eat into the segment of younger Kenyans who are leaning much more towards William Ruto in those presidential elections. And on Ruto's side, his side sponsored a candidate from the church. The objective being that this candidate could reach places where Ruto could not reach. And you remember what happened. Just before the elections, this particular candidate from the church stepped down and handed all his supporters to Ruto. Kunaendanga hivyo. However, what happened in Addis was really something. This strategy was used very effectively to shut out Raila Odinga from getting anywhere near a win. And it worked like a charm. Now Raila Odinga returns home to Kenya to a very, very different political environment. Yeah. From the one he left when he announced and started campaigning for a position in the African Union. The truth is, a large chunk of his supporters look at him today as a traitor, as somebody who betrayed them, as somebody who left them when they needed him the most. But the big shocker here is that perhaps you can find another clue here that will explain the desperation in President Ruto to get Raila Odinga elected at the African Union. And it is the suspicious, crazy, telltale signs we have seen from Raila Odinga supporters in recent times, especially over the minority coalition controversy in Parliament after the court ruling. It is clear that Raila Odinga supporters in Parliament, there is a very huge possibility that actually what we're being shown is that they're preparing to go rogue on the cooperation agreement they have had with Ruto thus far. And that could spell doom for the Ruto presidency. Because the simple question we need to ask ourselves is that now that Raila has returned and he does not have the AU job, what is he going to do next? Is he going to retire to Bondo? Do you see Raila retiring from politics? I don't. He will have to get active, very active, more active than he has been in the past in our local politics. And do you see him getting active, going all over Kenya, appealing to people to support Ruto in 2027? I don't. Honestly, I don't. I don't even think that will fly with his supporters. And so the only option is for him to try and regain his earlier position and join the calls for Ruto must go. And I think we even have a sign to prove what we are saying. Shortly after the announcement came in that Raila had lost the AU election, do you know what happened in Kondele, Kisumu City? I'm sure most of you have heard. People started chanting, Ruto must go. Ruto must go. Those were the chants. And so, if you're looking for a sign, there it is. And please don't get me wrong or misquote me, because what I firmly believe is that Raila Odinga will not be able to regain his previous glory, his previous influence and power with the people in Kenyan politics. However, he will be part of the push to remove Ruto from power. And I believe that will have some impact. That is what I'm saying. Because we have new kids on the block. I believe we've reached that place where the sovereign, the people of Kenya, are moving more towards center stage, to a place where they can operate on their own, without a leader of the stature of Raila Odinga. And all that spells doom for the presidency of William Samoei Ruto. But let us wait. You don't have to believe me. Let us wait and see how the politics unfolds. Okay, it should be super fascinating. Now, very quickly before I go, we're in the Lala Salama period last minute of my latest offer on a special report you cannot afford to miss. Yeah, which gives you a glimpse into how the Ruto presidency, the Ruto regime, is crumbling on the inside. Yeah, you'll be able to understand the kind of pressure and desperation we saw in the president in Addis Ababa, yeah, campaigning for Raila Odinga. It was very clear that Ruto wanted this much more than Raila Odinga himself. Isn't that strange? Anyway, in this very latest special report of mine, that will come out very clearly for you, and you will be able to understand. You can see details on your screens right now. For only Kenya shillings 2,999, pop! You can have this valuable special report in your inbox. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.